foglalkozott.
In short, what I can tell you is that here in Brussels, the atmosphere war continues to grow more and more violent. European politicians want to drag the European Union even further into the war, and they want to make the European people pay the price even more. There is a clear desire from Brussels to send more weapons and more money to Ukraine. The Ukrainian demands are getting higher and higher. They are demanding more and more money, more and more weapons. And it is clear that here in Brussels they want to satisfy these Ukrainian demands. They look at this issue from a Ukrainian perspective only and refuse to examine the consequences of this series of decisions from a European, EU, or even national perspective. So a series of decisions to send more money from the people of Europe to Brussels and more arms to Ukraine. The question of who is going to pay the price of all this is also being clearly asked here, and clearly no one here has a problem with making the people of Europe pay the price of increased arms supplies, except us. There's also self-flagellation. When my fellow ministers talk about how we are doing too little and too slowly after the hundreds of billions of euros of arms and money we have sent to Ukraine, it sounds a bit hypocritical, or rather a bit self-deluding. However, today it has been said by the representative of one of the largest European countries, one of the most powerful European countries, that the 17 sanctions packages that have been put in place so far have been or remain ineffective, less effective. We agree on this. It is a different matter to draw a completely different conclusion. We think that if 17 sanctions packages have been ineffective so far, then perhaps they should not be continued. In contrast, here the overwhelming majority wants to adopt new sanctions packages. For today at least, no new sanctions package was adopted. We are still under enormous pressure. Today, the vast majority of speakers have also put pressure on me to urge Hungary to finally agree to allow the EU accession negotiations with Ukraine to enter a meaningful phase and to fast-track Ukraine's accession to the European Union. I have made it clear that Hungary will not budge on this issue because we are bound by the clearly expressed will of more than 2 million Hungarians who do not want to be part of an integration process with Ukraine. Today, there were repeated insulting remarks about the Hungarian national community, in Transcarpathia, when several people said that the protection of national minorities can be achieved in the European Union, and several people made it clear that the fate of the Hungarian community in Transcarpathia is being considered as a bilateral Hungarian-Ukrainian issue, which has nothing to do with Ukraine's membership of the European. The Hungarian position is clear. We say a firm no to Ukraine's accelerated accession to the EU. We represent the clear position of the Hungarian people. We are not giving up on that. As long as we govern in Hungary, we in Brussels can prevent Ukraine from joining the European Union. I have made this clear today. There was enormous pressure, but this pressure could not, of course, match the will of 2 million Hungarians and never will. I would like to inform you of the following. 1 week ago, on February or July 8th, the Council of Europe's Human Rights representative, Michael O'Flaherty, has put a report on the table of the Council of Europe. This report is there because I can show you. His Ukraine Human Rights report to the Council of Europe states that the High Commissioner for Human Rights refers to the recent statement by the Ukrainian Parliament's Commissioner for Human Rights that human rights violations by Ukrainian recruiters, Ukrainian recruiting soldiers, have become systematic and widespread. According to a statement by the Human Rights Commission of the Ukrainian Parliament, these violent acts by Ukrainian recruiters included physical violence, beatings, brutal treatment, brutal arrests, and they also included the oppression of disabled people, people with disabilities, and other unacceptable acts. The human rights defender continued. The High Representative has received similar reports from Ukraine, which have been subjected to torture and conscription. So the fact that in Ukraine there is a manhunt on the streets in the form of forced conscription, that is a fact. The brutal treatment of people by the conscriptionists in Ukraine is a fact. That unacceptable acts of forced conscription are taking place in Ukraine is a fact. The fact that people are dying in Ukraine because of the brutality of the repressors, because they don't want to go to the front, They don't want to go to war. They don't want to take part in senseless killing. This is a fact. And sadly, it was a victim of a brutal manhunt in Ukraine. Last week, a Hungarian man. We find this unacceptable and shocking. And we also find the indifference and the lack of concern with which European politicians are dealing with this issue unacceptable and shocking. Where are the NGOs? Where are the Soros organizations? Where are the supposedly independent journalists? Where are the human rights organizations at this time? Why are they not speaking out that this manhunt on the streets of Ukraine is unacceptable? Now, after a Hungarian man had become a fatal victim of this brutal crackdown in Ukraine, tomorrow we will officially initiate an all-out action. Ukrainian army, leaders and officials will be placed on the EU sanctions list for responsibility for the beating to death of the Hungarian man. The European Union has a global human rights sanctions regime, which is a sanctions regime. It was set up so that if a systematic human rights violation occurs anywhere in the world, such as torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, arbitrary detention or imprisonment, the European Union can place the perpetrators on a sanctions list. Tomorrow we will have our concrete submission ready, and tomorrow we will submit it here in Brussels. Today I announced at the meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers that Hungary is taking the initiative to have a Ukrainian military officers responsible for the beating to death of a Hungarian citizen placed on the sanctions list by the European Union. This is the minimum. This is the minimum that the European Union must do on this issue. I can tell you that the 18th sanctions package in its current form does not harm fundamental Hungarian interests. This is a result of the fact that in the weeks and months during which we negotiated the 18th sanctions package, we negotiated hard, and we removed from this package all sanctions measures that would have harmed Hungarian national interests. This would have been a package of more than 120 sanctions. This has been reduced to around 60 elements thanks to effective negotiating tactics by Hungary. We have removed any element from this that could have harmed Hungarian national interests, whether economic, commercial, or, above all, energy supply or security. Up to now, the Slovaks have not received a guarantee that they value or would value as sufficient. Of course, we have indicated that we cannot accept a ban on the implementation of long-term gas purchase contracts. We cannot accept a ban on oil deliveries. We cannot accept a ban on spot market gas purchases, because these bans would mean that Hungarian families would have to pay 2 to 4 times more in utility bills than they are paying now. I disagree that it is a gray area. I don't think there is a better black zone than this. But the fact is that the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union makes it very clear that energy policy is a matter of national competence, and this violent proposal by the European Commission is a very blatant violation of national sovereignty, because it effectively takes energy policy from national competence to Brussels competence. In addition, everything that they say they want to do is the opposite, because they say that diversification will be achieved, that we will be able to buy energy from more sources. Well, it's almost better that I didn't say what I meant. So the bottom line is that in the case of Hungary, it would be the opposite, because we would be left with one of the 2 oil pipelines, and we would be deprived of 26 billion cubic meters of incoming gas capacity. They say it would make us more competitive, when the fact is that it would increase the price of energy by a factor of 2 to 4. In Hungary, they say that this helps with energy security. Well, of course not. It makes us vulnerable. So this complete, total black zone is unacceptable. It flouts European rules, blatantly violates national sovereignty, and disregards the fundamental national security interests of 2 countries. Because energy security is a national security issue. So we support the Slovaks in their efforts to move forward with a commission on these issues. Now, as far as the money is concerned, I mean, how much will it cost Europe to support Ukraine with more arms? No specific amount of money was mentioned. I can tell you one thing for sure. As long as we are in power in Budapest, the Hungarian people can be sure that the Hungarian people's money, the Hungarian army's weapons, and the Hungarian army's soldiers will not go to Ukraine. So, Just as we have not been involved in financing arms transfers to Ukraine under NATO or European Union frameworks, we will not be involved in financing arms transfers to Ukraine. No one will spend Hungarian people's money on sending weapons to Ukraine. Not for the first time, the Hungarian national community in Transcarpathia has been humiliated and ignored. To lie to the Ukrainians, they take minority rights seriously, and to start giving minority rights back to Hungarians is just nonsense. So to find a civilized adjective for this is very, very difficult, and I think impossible. However, we, the Hungarian government, the national government, will protect the Hungarian national community in Transcarpathia, JST, as we have taken countless steps over the past 10 years to stand up for the Hungarians of Transcarpathia. I take it from Esther's body language that there are still questions. If the viewers are free, here you go.
I've got it. The viewers have it. The question will be short. President Trump has threatened Russia with 100% tariffs if there is no peace in 50 days. What do you think about this idea? Particularly given that, I assume, this would have very unpleasant effects in Hungary.
First of all, we must be clear and unequivocal that no one has done as much for peace in Ukraine as Donald Trump. That is why he deserves respect and appreciation. And I think it is also clear that if European politicians and Ukrainian politicians had not constantly obstructed these peace efforts, they could have been successful by now. We hope, we trust that Donald Trump's efforts over the next 50 days will lead to success and bring about a ceasefire, the possibility of peace talks in Ukraine. And then, 50 days from now, this question will no longer be relevant.
A béketárgyalások lehetőségét Ukrajnában, és akkor 50 nap múlva ez a kérdés már nem lesz aktuális.